Hi, Jim Cranston from 7 Every Minute and 7everyminute.com, the podcast and website by, for, and about baby boomers. Wow, really lost track of the time tonight. Sorry if you were waiting. Thank you very much for waiting. And so let's get started on things. Tonight's going to probably might be a little brief, just basically a reminder of the importance of living our lives consistent with our true beliefs. And a lot of us say that we do that, and we certainly all try to do that. But when sometimes kind of life gets in the way of that. And every so often I have found it's worth trying to reset and kind of get back and think about what's really important to you and try and live your life so that that's really consistent. So let's get started on that. And first want to, of course, remind you that the regular reminder, I'm not a medical professional. And sometimes I talk about things that I personally find useful insofar as attitude and just adjusting to situations as they happen. This is the number for the National Suicide Hotline. If you find things are getting really, truly overbearing and just feel like you just want to talk to somebody, please utilize these numbers. And again, the 988 number, that's due to be online. What's the date? Starting July 16th of 2022. If you're watching this sometime in the future, it should be active. But it's not available right this very moment in mid-March everywhere. So you can try 988. If it doesn't go through, then you have the 800 number. Remember, it's a good number to keep in handy, whether you're for yourself, for a friend, and just good luck with everybody when the situations get overbearing. Don't forget that there's always people willing to support you in whatever situation you're going through. So starting off, as all my regular listeners know that I've been pretty focused on the entire invasion by Putin of the Ukraine, and certainly that situation hasn't changed over the past week. It certainly, if anything, has worsened. Tonight's topic, kind of the result of some of the things that I saw and read and experienced over the past week. And so what struck me first, I saw an editorial in the Wall Street Journal. As you know, I look at the journal a lot. It's kind of become the conservative New York Times. And so it was a story by Mr. Matthew Hennessy, and he was referencing a recent study that showed that 50% of the Democrats polled, but of course this is bipartisan, and over 32% of the Republicans polled, said they would leave the U.S. rather than stay and defend it. Now think about that. So all the amazing things that we have here, they said that they would leave rather than defend their own neighborhood. And that really struck me. And what struck me, just the core numbers struck me, of course. It was very disturbing, but not totally shocking. But what really struck me is that I think a lot of that is based upon that people don't realize how special our core freedoms are, how unusual they are, and they don't appreciate what a gift it is to give our kids and the rest of the world to act as a role model. I know it's really popular to do U.S. bashing now. Certainly we see it all the time in the news and by certain many special interest groups. And to everyone who's bashing the U.S., I would encourage you to go to other places, particularly other places that aren't so neat. They don't have to be far away. They can go somewhere, go to Singapore, for instance. I just remember in Singapore, I was with some people, and I used to work on a ship and was with some people, and they were doing something that they didn't realize was quite so illegal. And it was actually that somebody apparently had taken out some marijuana, and the people they were with, just like their face, blood drained from their face. And they said, well, what's the problem? They said, that's a death penalty here. Think about that for a second. Here we have all these different systems in place to keep us safe from the courts. They don't always work perfectly, but they're here, and they often work pretty well. And so here we have a bunch of people saying that they would just abandon all that for no reason. And so I thought about that a lot. And I thought it's not even just they don't realize what's there. They haven't really thought about what's there, and they don't realize that one of the most essential things that they just expect in life, the freedom to pursue happiness, it was so aptly said, is something that's not common in life. And so if you sit and think about your core beliefs, your core values, you start to realize then that, wow, things that are really important to me really should be directing my every action. And so it's when you go to do something, then it doesn't become something that you have to think, oh, what should I do in this situation? It becomes a natural reaction. if your natural reaction is to help somebody, you don't have to think, oh, I should hold the door open for somebody. You hold the door open. It's not a big thing. And if they don't say thank you, it's kind of okay, right? Because it's something that comes innately core to you. So, I've mentioned and told people I'm involved in my little support rallies for the Ukraine. And, and I tell them that they say, well, you just live in a little town. And so how many people see you and what is it really doing? And I always tell them that even if I make a little tiny bit of difference, then it's a complete success for me, because I've pushed the world a little bit in the direction that I want to see it go in. And I tell people often, it's certainly part of it is for the people of the Ukraine. I mean, the situation there is just horrendous. But the other piece of it is it's also for my grandkids and for my kids, because these are things I grew up in a world full of freedom, and I don't want them to see something different. I don't want them to be in a country that's always afraid of being attacked or whatever. And so it's easier for me to do these things, but it really goes deeper, partly because of my religious beliefs, partly because of how I was raised. And I'll talk about that in a second. Helping others is kind of part of my core belief and core mission, and I don't say that with any hubris or self-pride. It's just something that's always been a part of my life. It was taught to me by example by both my parents. My dad, I can remember as a child, he was an ophthalmologist, ran in the family, 3 generations of ophthalmologists. I dropped the ball, became an engineer. But I can remember going with him on Wednesdays, his day off, the classic midweek day off for many physicians at the time, to go give free eye care and health care to the migrant farm workers in the area. Where I live in upstate New York is actually a big farming area. And so there were migrant workers, and he would go there to the cornfields, whatever, and give free health care to these people. And I can remember as a child, it sticks in my head very, very clearly, of seeing all it, because I went to a Catholic school, so sometimes we get holidays that other people would not. And I can remember seeing that all these kids hanging out at the migrant camp. And so I said something to him. I said, oh, wow, they must all be Catholic. He goes, why do you say that? I said, because they're not at school. He goes, they don't go to school. I said, well, why don't they go to school? Because, I knew at that point school was really important to me. And he said, because their parents move all the time, so they're not in school at all. It was a very different world back then for anyone who's younger and listening. And I can remember thinking, wow, that, I get mad about school, and sometimes I don't want to do my homework and stuff, but these kids don't even have that opportunity. And it really made me think both kind of like, A, wow, my dad was an awesome guy, but B, how lucky I was to have that. And my mom was the same way. She did a lot of volunteer work at the local Catholic hospital, but I can remember her talking about working as a surrogate mother for abandoned children during her nursing school days in New York City. And so I was really fortunate. I grew up in a household where caring for others just was something that you did. It wasn't something that you were put out by doing. It was just, you learned to appreciate that you were fortunate and all the things you had. And so you wanted to share that with other people. So that's why, putting myself out there a little teeny bit by standing out there holding a sign saying support Ukraine, to me, that's the very least I can do for a cause that's critically important to me. And that's really the operative term here. It's not something that I think is important. It's not something I want to do because, oh yeah, I should probably do that. It's something that's critically important to me because it's something for my grandkids and my kids in the world in general. So on a related topic, I saw another editorial, and actually I apologize. The first editorial, which I kind of glanced over, it was a story, or I guess I did say his name, by Mr. Matthew Hennessy. The next editorial, also in the Wall Street Journal, was by Victor Pinchuk, Pinchuk. And the title of that one was actually, it was Sympathy Isn't Enough for Ukraine. And he starts off with a joke. And he says, 2 people are fighting about that blue and yellow paint is kind of getting in short supply these days. And if it runs out, how they'll be able to support Ukraine. And he immediately goes on to say that the moral support is wonderful and it's essential and it's appreciated and everyone's totally thankful for it. But at some point, action is needed. And so I think that's a really important point here, and that it's great to support causes. And it's one of the issues I have with many of the support rallies that you see these days, it's great to go to a rally because it gets other people worked up and gets other people aware of the situation or whatever the cause is that you're out stomping for. And that's really important. And that's why I go out and do my little mini rallies in one person. It makes people think about it. And so that's the motivation and the whole function of doing that. But the other piece of that is at some point you really do have to get out and get involved with things. And so I'll put up, of course, we talked about this before, we're really fortunate and happily, probably we're not going to be fighting a face-to-face battle in our neighborhood, hopefully, thankfully, anytime soon. But it could be something as simple as writing to your congressional representatives, encouraging them to support a cause that you believe in. And I know a lot of people say, well, the representative was from the other party. He doesn't care what I say, or she doesn't care what I say. And that's not really true, because even though that little teeny step may seem inconsequential, it truly does help steer policy, because they always have staffers that actually listen to all the calls, they read the letters. And that's why I encourage you, when you write a letter to your Congress critter there, that write in the very first sentence, right after, thank you for listening to my opinion. I oppose or I support this particular bill related to food or whatever. You want that right out in the first sentence, first paragraph, because some staffer is going to be reading that and say, Bill 2121, that's just a made up bill number, support, oppose. And that actually does help steer policy. And also, just from a personal standpoint, it lets the person, your representative, know that you've got their back when they stand on the floor and say, I support this bill, because they know that, 70% of their constituency said, yes, we support it with you and we'll vote you back in. And the other side of it is they also know that you'll be looking for their head if they oppose you the next time voting time comes around. And so it's really important from a couple different standpoints, both to get make people and talk to other people about what you just did. So you want to talk to other people about contacting them and supporting something. And then also you want to let the representative know that you're supporting them too, because it goes both ways. They need to know that they're going to have support from the constituency. And so, and I forgot to say again, that link, 70m.link/Congress, that's a shortened link. It actually takes you to the congressional office, and there you can put in your address, and that will tell you who, give you all the contact information you need for your representative in the House and your two senators. So that I think is really important. And of course, vote. And this isn't, well, just go out and vote whatever some particular bloc is saying to you. This is try and go out, find out about the candidates, find out about what the bills are that are on the ballot this year. And again, guide yourself by what's really, truly important to your very heart and your very soul. Because if you do that, then it's not hard to go out and encourage other people to vote, to talk about the issues. A lot of people say, I don't like to talk about politics. Well, if it's really something you believe in, then it's easy to talk about. It doesn't mean you have to argue, doesn't mean you have to scream, but it's just telling people and getting people involved and presenting your side of the argument. So I think that's really important. So acting even in a small way, if you act in a manner consistent with your core beliefs, you'll find that you feel a lot less threatened by the world and a lot more involved and confident in your actions and in life in general, which is a lot more fun way to live in general, of course. And, I haven't talked about this, I don't believe, before, but I'll talk about it briefly now. When I'm out, and people always ask me about this and say, well, aren't you scared about stuff? In reality, I have received a number of verbal threats and in one case, physical abuse. And so, thankfully, my perpetrators haven't been particularly competent and particularly aggressive. And so it hasn't been excessive. But what I find fascinating personally is that these people, I presume, are so uncomfortable with their lives that they feel compelled to attack somebody in some form or another who reminds them of that basic inconsistency. Because I'm just sitting there with a sign, and I could actually go grab it and show you. It has two words on it. It says support Ukraine. That's it. It's not anything about Russia. It's not anything about Putin. It's not anything about war. It just says support Ukraine. And just that is enough to get them so wired up that they feel that they have to act out directly towards me. And so rather than making me feel concerned about that, it actually makes me feel empowered, because I know then that I'm invoking some sort of change and making them think about something that's outside their comfort zone. And the reason I feel confident taking that risk is kind of because, again, for a similar sort of reason as they feel uncomfortable, I do feel comfortable with what I'm doing because it's consistent with my core beliefs. And I think you'll find, if you think hard, really think about what really matters to you, you can then use that to kind of give you the energy and the motivation you need to go out and make positive changes, both in yourself and in the world around you. And of course, we have our other little thing. If you feel like donating, this page leads to a bunch of links where you can donate financially to people. Different causes. There's humanitarian causes. There's very direct causes. And I have to check. There's actually a link available, which I haven't posted yet, where you can actually sign up for the Ukraine Army. Probably not doesn't apply to most of my listeners. They're looking for young, frisky people. But, the important point is that if you're acting in a way that you truly feel confident in, that and if it's one of your core beliefs, you will automatically feel confident in it, whatever it is, whether it's, organic food and farming, if it's, for me, helping people in difficult situations, if it's for voter rights for certain blocks, if it's for aid to certain countries, whatever it is that's really important to you, if you keep that as your real motivator, then all the other things become much easier to do. That doesn't mean that people aren't going to harass you, people aren't going to say things or whatever, but now it's not kind of like they're not personally attacking you. They're trying to attack your core belief. But because it's a core belief, you know that they can't really harm that because that's dear and inside your heart. So again, as always, as we talked about before, please keep everyone in this needless Russian-led conflict in your prayers and in your thoughts, because it has worldwide implications. But most of all, be true to yourself. It will serve you in every situation in ways that go far deeper than public appearance or, short-term comfort or a little self-confidence, because you can live knowing that you're doing all you can to help others live their best lives, and you will live your own best life. Remember, caring for others is caring for yourself. So that's it for the week. Thank you so much for stopping by. If you found something interesting or useful, please pass it along. And if not, please drop me a comment telling me what you'd like to hear about. Have a great week. Thanks for visiting. And of course, remember to live the life that you dreamed of, consistent with your goals and with your inner soul, because that's the path to true contentment. Love and encouragement to everybody. Thank you so much, and see you next week on 7 Every Minute and 7everyminute.com. Thank you.